Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another brand new, no rerun episode of Tapcaf
Brand new.
Wow. I can't believe that. I can't work under these conditions. But I'm Corey, who can't work under these conditions, joined, as always, by my interrupting, effervescent co-host, Mr. EckhartsLadder. How are you doing tonight, Justin? And are you afraid you're going bald? What are you doing with your hair there?
I had a little, I don't even know what this was, maybe a bit of like gel or something in my hair. And at first I thought it was on my computer monitor. That's why I was like moving around, and then it was in my hair. I got it. So we're good.
Okay.
I'm doing well. We've got a very fun show for today. So we're going to be talking about Battle Scars, the new Star Wars Jedi Survivor tie-in novel. Not really a tie-in novel, more of like a prequel novel. And then we're going to do next episode about Mando and Bad Batch, right? Are we going to talk about Mando and Bad Batch at all?
Are you here? Are you here next week?
No. So next week after that, rather. Yeah.
So we should maybe do a quick 2-minute review on the Outpost and on Mines of Mandalore.
Yeah.
Spoilers for the next 2 minutes, by the way.
You said Mines of Mandalore. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Like MINDS, that's what I heard.
Oh, well, okay, well, that's just how I talk. Thank you for calling
That's also that would have been an interesting title as well. Like, I think that kind of would have worked, but...
Oh, yeah, that's the Galaxy Brain chess. So, yeah. Which of these two did you prefer?
Kind of the same as last week, where I think the Outpost was a better Bad Batch episode. It was better. It was a better than average Bad Batch episode compared to Mando season 3 episode 2. But I still like Mando more. Yeah. So, in other words, the Bad Batch was maybe better compared to the norm, but Mando is just, for me, I just love it so much that
the Outpost hit above expectations rather than necessarily being better.
Yeah. Pound per pound, the Outpost was better, but it's still like a macro versus a
And
I
now
love the Bad Batch.
I feel absolved of my accidental spoiler last week. So I didn't get any hate for that. I didn't get my access
they got
revoked.
A Tatooine.
Yeah, so I'm good. But I enjoyed both of them. I thought they were both good episodes. A lot of the stuff that Mando touched on, I really enjoyed, like how they're getting into the different views of Mandalore and starting to bring Bo-Katan and Din closer together while still showing that they have a pretty big ideological gap. But
I don't. A lot of people were seeing some like sexual chemistry there. I don't really get that myself.
So I don't necessarily get that it's a romantic relationship, but I also don't get like the vociferous response to anyone who says it might be a romantic relationship. That there's some people who are very strongly against that, and I try to avoid shipping wars online. I think that's become...
Would she be like a MILF for him?
Possibly.
Because like during the Clone Wars, she's already pretty old and he's a kid. So
I think she's supposed to be pretty young during the Clone Wars, which I mean, compared to him being 3, it's like a 15-year difference at least. But I mean, they're probably what, 30 to 45 for the pair of them.
See, I thought Bo-Katan was older than that.
She's a little bit older than that probably, but it's not. We're not in a Leo DiCaprio situation here, or a Madonna situation.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
But there's one thing that I keep seeing that I do want to come out strongly against: the idea that that Bo-Katan is now the rightful owner of the Darksaber because Sewer Grievous technically beat Din, and then she beat Sewer Grievous, and that's not how that works. It's not Harry Potter weird wand magic bullshit. It's otherwise, like I said this on Twitter, but like Palpatine beat Maul, and they didn't then say like, oh, by the way, Palpatine, here's your Darksaber, we're going to mail it to you because you are now Mandalore. There has to be like some understanding of a challenge for it. I don't think any Mandalorians would see like getting tricked by a helmet trap under the sand as a valid duel anyways.
I'm going to slightly disagree. I think you're right. However, I think if she had taken the Darksaber and not given it back to him, like I think, being Mandalorian is all about survival of the fittest and, strongest. So if she has it and he can't take it back from her, like, to me,
Well,
that's pretty valid.
but if Bo-Katan's been in this situation before where she has the dark saber,
Mhm.
someone would have to like forcibly take it from her for her to give it up at that point before she like gives it back to Sabine. But
Mhm.
the rules lawyering she'd have to do to say like, this is mine, I deserve to have this. If you're at a point where you have to like stake your claim on the dark saber with that kind of situation, no one's going to listen to you anyways.
I
It's
don't
not
think
like a
it's that.
magical thing.
I don't think it's that complicated. I think you can just say, "This is mine." You can, and anyone's free to try to take it. You know what I mean? Like, try to take it from me. Like, I think that's kind of like the nature of the dark saber. You get it, people want it. It's kind of like a representation of being the alpha because you're open for a challenge at any point. You know what I mean?
Okay, but like
So,
if in Book of Boba Fett, when the
mhm,
armor was like waving it around and talking about Mandalore, if
mhm.
she'd said, "Okay, this is mine now," do you think Paz Vizsla would have been like, "Yeah, you earned that. That's yours now, ma'am"?
Well,
Because
no,
it's
but
about, can you
how is
command the respect? Like, if you get it through being a kind of a little piece of shit, no one's gonna say, "Okay, I will follow." It's not just like
but
you
but
have the
here's
dark
the
saber, therefore I must listen to you at this moment. It's not the speaking conch.
But how is it any different from her taking it and being, too powerful for anyone to challenge versus her taking it off Din Djarin's dead body? Like, if she takes it and Din Djarin's too much of a weakling to take it back, like, is that really that different? I don't know.
But it's not just like whoever has it rules the Mandalorians. It's like whoever is able to claim it in a way that they see as legitimate gets that respect. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
the
just
difference
think
between just being like, I'm wearing
yeah.
the crown, therefore I have all the power, versus I'm wearing the crown because I have whatever capabilities allowed me to get the crown, and you guys like that shit.
Yeah, I just think if you have it and no one is big enough to take it from you, that's how it is.
Okay, well, enjoy following whatever loser gets your famous leaderships. The whole thing's ridiculous. But uh for Seth, do you think we'll see Ahsoka in season 3 before we move on here? And how old is
uh
she supposed to be? I think
Ahsoka,
Ahsoka would
how
be about 50 as well. Maybe
I think we'll see
younger.
Ahsoka, yeah.
40 to 45 probably for Ahsoka. But
She's
I
like
agree.
14 in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That's like 14 plus 22 plus, you know,
Yeah.
however much. She's getting up there.
So
We did
it's
we
like
did get
8 to 10
some
ABY, so it's about 30 years past then. She's 44.
yeah. We did get some news today as well. Some interesting Star
We
Wars.
did.
Actually, we got a lot of news. From the least surprising one, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi was announced. I
With some
think everyone.
pretty good authors, like a pretty wide range of authors of like old RPG adventure people and newer people, like Emma Miko
Mhm.
Cannon, who wrote the Ronin novel, which we both really
Yeah, I was
enjoyed,
really
is in
happy to
there.
see her name there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the book cover, but yeah, there's a bunch of interesting ones. I saw Jason Fry is doing one, which always makes me
Yeah.
happy. Phil Shostak does he usually write things other than the art books?
I think he's done from a certain point of view before.
Okay,
I think. I don't quote me on that, but I think so.
is Sam Meggs on the list? I actually didn't look for her name.
I don't think so. Uh
No, I don't see it. I'll just quickly list off all the names, and if there's any you want to talk about, like, just stop me, okay?
right.
Saladin Ahmed, Charlie Jane Anders, Tom Engelberger. I recognize his name. Kristen Baver. I think she runs the Star Wars show now. Olivia Blake, Kimi Dawn Bowman, Emma Candon, Olivia Chada, Gloria Chow, Mike Chen. He wrote Star Wars Brotherhood, right?
Yep.
Adam Christopher. He
He
did
wrote Shadow of the Sith.
Shadow of the Sith. Paul Crilly, Amal El Motar, M.K. England, Jason Fry, Adam Lance Garcia, Lamar Giles or Gillies, Max Gladstone, Thea Guazon, Ali Hazelwood, Patricia Jackson, Alex Jennings, Mary Kenny, Jarrett Kazaksa, Sarah Kuhn, Danny Lore, Sarah Glenn Marsh, Kwame Mumbalia, Marike. I'm sorry, this one's tough for me. Nijcomp. Do you know how to say that, Corey? Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. I just don't know. Daniel Page, Laura Paul, K. Arsenal Rivera, Dana Schwartz, Tara Sim, Phil Shostak, Susan Walker, Hannah Witten, Fran Wild, Sean Williams, Elisa Wong. About halfway through starting, I was like, why did I do this? But I didn't want to throw disrespect in anyone's name. So a lot of names I don't recognize, and a lot of names that are new to Star Wars writing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's usually a pretty big or a good mix on those books. So
Yeah, editor Tom said, of the 108 contributors, this is from the entire trilogy, certain point of view trilogy, 70% were making their Star Wars debut at the time. So interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Try to get on for we'll try to get on for Phantom Menace.
Yep.
Certain point of view.
Yeah, I can't wait to write the perspective of one of the announcer heads from the pod race. Maybe we should go in together, see if we can sell them on this. Where like we each write. I want Greg Proops. You can do the other one.
I want to be the creature that farts right in Jar Jar's fucking face.
Well, one other bit of news: Celebration.
Speaking of Jar Jar farting in faces, let's talk about this book. No, I'm joking.
Well, did you see the thing about like Jar Jar used to expand when he got anxious in the original drafts of Episode 1?
I did not see
that. I
want
to do a clip on this, I think, but
expand where and how?
Like he was basically a pufferfish. Early Jar Jar was like he looked like Jar Jar, but he was a pufferfish. So he's like
not expanding like in the parking garage of Disney World.
We're not reading that on the podcast.
No, we're absolutely not.
Yeah, so Celebration, first thing they just announced today that there's going to be some, I think it was today, some Acolyte news as well as some Star Wars Eclipse news at Celebration.
Surprising. Yeah.
But the big thing based on our prior discussions and my attempt to follow up with the email is that there is going to be a publicly available stream. There's still going to be some exclusive stuff. Yeah, it's not going to be everything, but...
I don't think it's any of the panels.
Yeah, so I tried to do my due diligence. I still stand by my editorial work there, but it does seem like there's going to be more than nothing.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It seems like we're not getting the panels too, which is kind of the big exciting bits.
We're getting less than last year.
Yeah, significantly less. Yeah, I was definitely surprised to hear Acolyte might be there. Yep. So,
but yeah, so let's get into.
Oh, one other thing. I saw on Reddit that the watch or the length for Mando episode 3 is available. Do you want me to say what it is?
Yes.
It is apparently 56 minutes long, so quite a jump. Yeah, quite a jump.
Yeah. And we haven't been sent any future screeners yet, so we're going in. I can't accidentally spoil anything at this point. Yeah. But yeah, so do you want to get into Jedi Battle Scars now?
Yeah, this is probably the episode where, based on our conversations, you and I are going to have the biggest disagreement. This is one of my least favorite Star Wars books I've read in a long time. The only thing I liked about it was how short it was. Very, very, very little redeeming for me in this book. It like at times felt like an AI was writing a lot of it, where it was just kind of like nonsense, and I just didn't like very much of this at all.
All right, so I'll lay out the plot first. It's pretty simple. It's not a universe changing book, even though the tech that they kind of talk about,
which I actually would have been fine with, but
yeah. So it's at some point in the years between Fallen Order and Battle Scars, and not in Battle Scars. It is Battle Scars and Survivor. At least a few years after Jedi Survivor, and there's like a 5-year after the first one, after Fallen Order, and so we don't have an exact timeline on it, but they've been together for a while. They're doing a raid. The Stinger Mantis crew is doing a raid on a Haxian Brood base. They end up picking up a stormtrooper who follows them out, gets them a mission to recover a piece of tech called the Shroud, which I don't know if it's supposed to be like a cloaking device that also blocks radar.
Some sort of cloaking device.
Yeah, it's a little bit overstated, but it's a MacGuffin, so who gives a shit? They go and have to get this device from Marcana, which luckily happens to also be where the Circlet of Suresh from Knights of the Old Republic is hanging out as a Jedi artifact that Seer wants. Everyone
Mhm.
fights a lot about what's going on. Marin has a bunch of sex, and then they find out that the inventor of the shroud was the stormtrooper that they picked up's girlfriend, and is the schematics because she never wrote them down. And then everyone
Also, they
goes off
don't
their
actually
own way.
work in the end. So
Yeah.
yeah. And also, the most unbelievable part for me was anybody falling in love with the Nikto. You see how
Yeah, it's kind of
ugly of a
gross.
species that is? Like
All right,
the
so
Nikto is like it's like the alien, like the gang leader from Mando season 3, episode 1.
hmm.
Yeah.
So I'll lay out what I thought was the good and the bad of it, and then
Yeah.
we'll just see if you want to turn all of my good into bad as well.
No, I'm sure I'll agree with some of the good.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the good. I think that for the most part, the character work for the main characters, for the main Stinger Mantis crew is pretty good, with some notable exceptions that I'm sure we're going to spend most of our time talking about. Uh, like, we're definitely going to disagree on this, but I think when Marin isn't just having chapters about her being like lovesick, like that are like solely focused on thinking Fred is hot, I think that her
Mhm.
character is actually done pretty well.
Okay.
Grease is pretty much great the entire way through. I think Grease was completely nailed, which is cool because Grease is a better character than I think people give him credit for. Uh,
I'll just say I agree with that. I think Grease was one of my highlights, actually.
Yeah. And Seer, I think, was actually done really well, except for one taxi joke at the start. I was afraid at the start that there was going to be too much of the, like, they're all just the same character doing humorous stuff. But I think Seer was done pretty well through it as well. Uh, the downside of that in general was, like, there was too much of the saccharine, but we're all family throughout the whole thing, and, like, too much
There
overstating
was
what that's going to be
literally like a
like.
moment at the very end where she's like, "I get my strength from my family,"
Yeah.
and I was just imagining like
If it wasn't
fucking
that was basically
yeah,
every other page, and that was a bit much.
yeah.
Uh, I don't have a problem with it being like a smaller adventure because like
No, me neither.
I think that was fine. Overall, it did make me more interested in what happens with the characters in Jedi Survivor, which I think is ultimately what the book is for. So that worked out for me. The problem is that for a book that is like so heavily Marin focused, which is great on itself, uh, there's some chapters where I think it's exploring like her losing people and her getting overly attached to people well, but then there's other chapters where it's just
Mhm.
like literal slash fiction between
Yeah,
her and the analyst they pick up, Fred.
yeah.
And I think like the biggest problem is that Fred is just such a non-character.
Yes.
Like
Oh my
she
god.
gets described as like basically just exists to be hot,
Yeah.
and the the rest of the crew, you get some hints that like, okay, Marin is going too fast with this, and it's called out in the book a bit, but it's not really seen as a negative there. It's just
No.
everyone says like, oh, we don't trust Fret, but how can you not like her? It's like, how can you like her? She hasn't done or said anything at all other than, wow, this person is hot. So that it's not super believable how fast like the way Marin feels about this particular person. I think exploring that like Marin is very passionate in Fallen Order, like in general. She's very upset about everything. She has a lot of reasons to be very upset about everything. But there are chapters that are just read like slash fiction that those are the kind of the what interrupts everything. And I think it's easy for that to overshadow the good parts of the book.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of remove two chapters, I think that would overall make the book much better.
I mean, yeah. My problem is the book is ultimately built around Marin's kind of infatuation with this character. Or she thinks it's love. Maybe it is, but like I find the book does absolutely nothing to like establish this.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Like
have a
we get
problem with that if it wasn't for everyone else also saying, "Oh, I can see how you're connected." Oh,
sure, yeah. I mean, I think would have a bit of a problem with it because it turns Marin into kind of a boring and not very interesting to read character.
mhm.
Like, yeah, infatuation is something that definitely happens to people, but it's not necessarily an interesting topic for an entire book. I actually will agree that I thought I didn't like Sears' character as much. I really wasn't a fan. I thought the character who was I thought Cal was completely underused and like misused in this novel.
He was
Um,
a bit too one note.
Yeah, he's like I had posted. He's a bit of a goody two shoes. I think it auto corrected to goody two shows, but which is kind of weird because we spend like one of my problems. The book opens up very video gamey, which I guess is a choice, because a lot of most people reading this are probably fans of the video game. But like they go to this Haxian Brood base and they're killing like literally 100 plus people by hand, and there's no talk about that at all. There's no, hey, maybe like this isn't a super like light side thing to do. Then of course later on, the crew faces off against the fifth brother, which to me was like the most useless, uninteresting lightsaber fight ever, because we know how the fifth brother dies. We know Seer is still alive. We know Cal is still alive. So that I wasn't getting a whole lot out of. And then of course that battle ends with Seer doing the whole, she's got him, they can beat him, and she does the whole, hey, you sure you don't want to turn to the light side thing? So like it's just a little contrived. I had no time for that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can keep going. I did my whole thing.
No, and yeah, like the new characters I found really uninteresting, and the Stinger Mantis crew really just felt like I wanted to know more about like what the crew had actually, how they changed in the 2 years, like where their story has gone. But it feels more like it's been like 2 weeks and they've went on some sort of like vague adventure that they sort of allude to. We're meant to believe that like they're this big family, and like sometimes that comes through, but like it just doesn't really feel earned, which honestly for me was actually a bit of an issue that the game had as well, where the camaraderie built up a little too quickly. So yeah, and the writing didn't do it for me. I didn't enjoy the Marin chapters. I really, really didn't enjoy the two new characters. It's like the book wanted to be more adult in how it treats like sex and stuff, which is fine, but it doesn't do like the emotional legwork you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt to me like all of this is like the end. I was thinking like there's kind of this, Marin has this speech where she's talking to Fred and she's like, oh, we're like twin sons, etc., etc. And I'm like, I was just thinking Fred would respond, but alas, I wasn't written into the game. So it's like she's got to go.
Yeah, like I think Seer, I got a lot of the same feeling from Seer in the book as I did in the game, of like, okay, she's a good character, but also like I'm kind of terrified of her at the same time.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I thought that was actually pretty well done. Like I thought that the stuff with the fifth brother and her was like, I like the premise. I like most of what's there, but there was just kind of a problem that I had throughout the book, is that there were moments where it went too far to make sure you understand why it's doing what it's doing. And
yeah, for sure.
Like there was like, I think if you're seeing what Trilla is doing with the fifth brother in general, you can say like, okay, so like she's clearly still upset about what happened with Trilla. She still feels very guilty about that. So we don't necessarily need two different times where someone else in the scene says, hey, look, that's Trilla. It's like, okay, yeah, we get that.
We get a Cal. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think it's kind of just that for me, where like it goes like 80% of the way on doing things that I think are good, and then it just goes a little bit too far with them, or a lot too far with them in potentially some situations that kind of detract from what it's trying to do. And I think that's where it doesn't quite meet its potential.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy seeing, or I agree with seeing Marin go through a lot of the things she goes through. It's just the specifics on the execution that feel a bit weird, especially when you have all the other characters saying like, oh yes, that's how you're definitely connected, when like there's nothing about Fret that really develops her as a character, just as an object for sexual attraction for basically everyone.
Yeah, it's like part of the thing is, if you're going to write a story about infatuation, like the whole idea of like infatuation or even falling in love is like, it's not necessarily logical. You know what I mean? And in this, it's like, it's really just based off her liking the way her thighs look pretty much at the beginning. But like, you've got to do more to get the reader kind of into it. Like you got to make us I at no point was I involved in the relationship in any way other than the fact that or not involved, interested in the relationship in any way other than the fact that I like Marin as a character,
Yeah.
really. And where that was, to me, the relationship really is the driving force of the book. It just it didn't really do it for me. And then the actual missions themselves I found really, really forgettable and boring. Like the mission to Marcana was just, I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. What was I gonna say? The last battle is a little weird as well.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who's described as a sketchy free market capitalist ends up being a bad guy is definitely not a
we all knew
shocker.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was never a point where it seemed like that should have been a good idea. And the other thing I don't get about that, the way it resolves of oh, we're going to go and give him the decoy shrouds that he doesn't come after you. It didn't seem like the explosion they planned from it was going to kill him in the first place. It was just to make him think it's a dud, but then he's still going to be looking for Arai. The only way that they get out of that is by killing him, and no one seemed to really call that out.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of why not bring Seer? I guess it's because she needed to pilot the Stinger Mantis, but she probably would have been useful there. Yeah, and then of course the fifth brother shows up at the end, which I was actually fine with. It's just I don't know. There were parts that were okay. I thought Marin dealing with her magic was kind of interesting, and obviously she's a dark sider. Sith magic is it really is just the dark side of the Force, just understood differently and used differently. So I thought it was interesting how, she's, when she gets upset, it manifests in different ways, and she's kind of struggling to use it at the beginning. I thought that part was kind of interesting, but yeah.
I feel like there's got to be the way that Grey Jedi get derisively talked about needs to turn into people starting to talk about the Night Sisters as well, because I feel like the same people who get really obnoxious about of course there's no Grey Jedi, you just want to use Force lightning, don't seem to apply that same logic to everyone else using the Force outside of the Jedi. And I do agree that philosophically I don't think the Grey Jedi position makes any sense, but I can see it as a thing that people think they're doing in universe.
Totally. I agree. That's the thing in universe. It's always, you think you can. And we get a little bit of this in the book with Seer, because she's got the history of using the dark side, where it's you think you can just tap in sometimes, but obviously it doesn't quite work like that. But and I guess that's probably part of the reason why Marin isn't able to use her powers as much. I guess she is kind of quasi falling to the light side a little bit, without really kind of recognizing what's going on. I'm guessing that's some of it. Yeah.
So she can become a Jedi?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I don't think she'd ever want to give up the Night Sister heritage, but
yeah, for sure.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the big this is kind of a different topic, so if you want to finish yours, go ahead.
I was gonna go to something else as well, so you can.
I was gonna say one of the I'm thinking about how this, because if somebody is gonna ask me do I need to read this book before playing the game? Definitely not. And I'm trying to think of what would I tell somebody who asked for a recap. The big things would really be Seer seems to be, there's Seer and Cal have a different perspective on what they should be doing. And I think that kind of comes from Jedi Survivor, where Seer is off. We see her rebuilding a library or something. So that's one thing. And then Grease loses an arm as well. And I assume he's going to have a prosthetic by the time of the sequel.
I think what the book does, you don't need to read it before you play Jedi Survivor. And I think it would be a bad thing to make it have something happen that you really needed to read
I agree.
before you play the games. But I do think it does a good job of setting up why they are separated when you start into Jedi Survivor. You can see the fractures in what all the group wants to do or why they're all there. And we know they're apart by Jedi Survivor. So I think it does a good enough job of showing that there are those underlying irreconcilable differences while still having them have a reason to stay together for now. Obviously the book doesn't resolve that as a central plot point of the fact that there is that tension in the group. I don't think it can resolve that. And I think that might as like a standalone story cheapen it a little bit, but it like that's not really the book's fault. It can't do anything there. So I think largely until it starts getting into the overly saccharine overall family stuff, I think it handles that pretty well.
Yeah, I just kind of wonder whether like that could have come about in even like a more interesting like story. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there could have been a story that didn't feel like a side quest
Mm-hmm.
that could have kind of it even actually no, I'm not going to say that because it's not the scale that's really the issue. It's there's like there could have been a story with, you know, even if it is small scale, that has a really interesting moral dilemma or something that really splits
Yeah.
the crew for more than just like, hey, I don't like how this stormtrooper lied to us. Like, I think that would have been a really cool thing to see. Like, if anything, this book kind of stays a bit to, hey, we're all family, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
You know, even when Grease gets his arm cut off, he's pissed, but you know, not really at the core crew members.
Yeah.
So it does seem like they are going to be split up at the beginning of Jedi Survivor. Hopefully they come back because I think everyone really likes the characters.
Yeah. There's no
But,
way that they're not all back in that.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I just like even that kind of felt like a real like there's nothing in this book that I was happy made it really like or that like I felt like couldn't have been implied by just the time between games or anything. And like I wonder if I got a question because one of the most controversial bits is certainly going to be the fact that Cal and Marin not only don't have a relationship like a romantic relationship but haven't at all. Did you sense one when you played Fallen Order? And you are replaying it now, right?
Yeah,
So,
I like you get the feeling that there's a potential connection there, but I never
yeah,
expected it to be a thing that happened between games.
right.
And I think
No.
it's something that like this book actually does more to push that along
Yeah.
than Fallen Order does. And I think that there's going to be an issue with Star Wars is that a lot of the audience is probably younger and
Mhm.
maybe not like the most romantically experienced in that like they may think that the way it works in
Star Wars
universe.
fans are virgins. Corey loses 2023.
Well, just the idea of like they'll see when a lot of people are shipping, they'll think
Yeah.
like there's this one relationship, every character gets one relationship and then they're done. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people will focus too much on like, oh, they put Marin with this other person instead of Cal. This means they can never get together. But like if you read the fucking book, there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, does Cal feel that way about her? Oh, does she maybe feel that way about him as well? And like I was never expecting them to get together between the two games. It's this kind of thing that like the book kind of sets up could happen in the future still. Like it's not closing the door on
Yeah.
that at all. It's not even like I feel like a few people probably took it as like intentionally going out of the way to prove that ship wrong. And I really don't think that's the case here. Like I
Yeah.
think it keeps that door open. I don't think if they were going to put them together in the game either, that they would have implied it was this thing that happened between Fallen Order and Survivor and then ended. And I don't think anyone would have found that particularly satisfying anyways. So I don't think
Yeah.
that's
I
a
guess
problem.
I generally agree, and you're right that in part of it is because Star Wars like is like that a lot, where it's like, oh, Han and Leia they were together when they were, you know, when Princess Leia was 20, they're gonna be together forever.
Yeah, it'd be
I
like
guess
people getting upset about Kira because like, oh, we actually know that Han marries Leia. No, he wasn't in this relationship.
yeah, he'd actually never been kissed before, but I guess the only thing you do get like a bit of uh, and you know Cal senses it, Seer senses it, a bit of like these these are fated partners thing, where it like almost tries to elevate their relationship, and I think I don't feel this way. I think some people might feel like that eventually will lessen the relationship if it happens between Cal and Marin, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like Marin is like ready to throw her life away. Like she can't imagine. But I mean, I guess that's what it's like a lot of times when you get with someone for the first time.
Yeah, they're also like they are pretty young themselves. Like
Yeah.
Fret is 21.
Yeah.
Marin and Cal are
Probably
probably
around
under
that.
25
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I think one thing that the book does highlight about the relationship is uh as much as it does the whole star connected lover stuff, it really emphasizes that part of what's bringing Marin and
It's a
and Fret
trauma.
together is that similar trauma in that Fret is able to feel and express rage in a way that is kind of natural to Marin, which you can see in Fallen Order, and like is more important to her use of the dark side, essentially. And she's around two Jedi all the time, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that, if it hadn't gone to the whole star connected thing, I would have. That's the same thing where it's like it gets 80% of the way on the right track of stuff. Like I'm with it on this, but then it just goes that little bit too far. Where then
Mhm.
like also Cal and Seer and Grease are thinking the same thing about them.
Yeah.
And there is like stuff with Cal and Marin that I do wish had been explored more, not in a romantic sense, but there was something like with the dark side usage where Marin gets like
Mm.
really self-conscious about the fact that she just raised an undead army, which she hadn't done since Jedi Fallen Order. She's
Yeah.
like,
I don't usually do this,
yeah,
but
like Cal, what is Cal going to think about this? And is he going to hate me for this? And she's like terrified about that.
and he's kind of cool with it.
He's kind of cool with it, and it doesn't really get addressed. And I feel like that could have been a more interesting conversation than it was. But I think that gets back to the fact that like Cal gets a bit
Yeah.
more surface level of stuff, but we never really see too deep in what he's doing.
Yeah. Cal's like, "Oh, we're raising zombies now? That's what we're doing now?" No, but
I guess that happened.
yeah. There was even one part, and I agree. Cal was very surface level. We get like there's some parts where he's like sort of sad about like every single person he's ever known being dead. But there's like even one occasion where, and maybe this is kind of Marin's like insecurity, or maybe it's like her ignorance, where she's like, Cal and Seer had come to terms with what had happened to them, and they were cool with it. Like Cal probably is never going to be totally
Yeah.
cool with what happened.
Yeah, like, I think part of that is really just Marin being
She's kind of accidentally like setting herself apart from everybody.
yeah, and yeah, I think that's like an intentional thing rather than just
Yeah. No,
saying that
that's
Cal
definitely
is
possible.
emotionally dead inside. He's just a
Yeah.
quit machine or something.
Yeah.
Because like it
He
does set up
was just a quit machine for parts of this book.
yeah, like it does set up like the main thing it sets up with Cal is the feeling that like he has to protect everyone. He has to be responsible for everything.
Yeah.
And like I think that's definitely a good thing to explore with him. But
I agree. It just that can also be a bit exhausting sometimes. Like there's I think probably the stupidest scene that's ever been in a Marvel movie is that one from either the first or second, like either Endgame or the other one, where it's like Black Widow and Hawkeye like in a competition to see which one can throw each other off the edge or which one can throw themselves
Yeah.
off the edge first.
Yeah.
It's like who is actually the most pure and self-sacrificial. But for Cal it does work because that is kind of his character. But I don't know. I want to see more nuance. I would have liked to see. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think it's quite the same because like that was both of them trying to sacrifice themselves for the other one. Whereas Marin wasn't saying like Cal shouldn't put himself in that position. It was that Cal needs to stop telling other people they can't, or that like his choice to be the sacrificial one or to put himself in danger is more valid than everyone else. Because like Cal's whole thing is like he needs to stop the Empire. No one else can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yada yada. And
I think I don't know. I feel like the idea of a person being completely self-sacrificing can work, but like you need to put a bit more work into why. Either because they've got serious issues with themselves, like the crew is really all that they have. Like I don't necessarily think it's healthy to necessarily be okay with being 1,000% self-sacrificial at literally every instant without thinking about it. You know what I mean? Even for a Jedi. Yeah.
And I do think, since it just came up in chat again, like as much as I think the widespread killing is a choice that's made because it's like a video game book, it goes much farther than you ever actually go in game. Like you're not doing anywhere near this amount of carnage at any point in Fallen Order.
Yeah, they literally slaughter, like they must kill 200 people at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's Cal is like Marin was having all the fun as she's like giving like stormtroopers the big suck and taking their life force out. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's it is a bit much, and I think it goes beyond just video game adaptation there. But,
Yeah, and Cal's just like, Beatty, give me that stim.
Yeah.
Give me the memory suppressor.
There's one point where it's like, I think it's basically saying he's surrounded by empty stims.
Yeah.
I do like that it did incorporate some of the more game mechanic
I
aspects
thought that
as
was
being a
fun.
thing that's like actually happening, but it does have some funny implications sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely liked BD. BD, it's hard not to like him.
BD's fantastic, yeah.
I do like how he's like generally described as having like a calming nature on people.
Yeah.
It's like BD generally calm people down. Like, yeah, I can see that. He's really cute.
Yeah. BD and in the boggling.
Yeah.
That's the OTP of Star Wars. Forget like Marin and Fred or Marin and Cal. It's BD and boggling.
Yeah. And the plants as well.
Yes. Yeah, it made me feel a little self-conscious because, like, oh shit, canonically, Cal got all the seeds.
Yeah. Oh fuck, I got 3.
Hey guys, welcome to my canon playthrough. We're on collectible number 97. We got to get the Rosher seed because I forgot it the first time.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's canon now, so we've let Cal and the Mantis crew down.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to open up our tier list.
Okay.
And where are you landing with Battle Scars?
Unfortunately, this one is a D. It's a D for me. Yeah.
Fitting with the themes of the book, Justin is giving it the D.
There's not a lot of D's being given in this book, Corey.
I don't think you want to make people think that that's our problem with it.
I was going to actually comment on that because I do want to make it clear. Sam Maggs, who's the author, gets a lot of hate for, I don't even know why, because I don't know anything else she's written that I've read. People seem to hate her, and let's be honest, it's because she writes like gay and lesbian characters. And yeah, that's not my problem I had with this book. It was pretty much everything else.
Yeah,
So.
I'm mostly familiar with her from Critical Role stuff because I read like some of the Critical Role extra stuff, and I have enjoyed her stuff there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so she
writes like tie-in novels to like their adventures, does she?
Yeah, she hasn't done a ton of like novel type stuff or story type stuff. She's done like a bit of Marvel stuff. She's done some Critical Role comics. I think it's mostly been comics
Call
before.
of Duty Vanguard. Let's go.
I don't think she wrote all of Call of Duty Vanguard.
Yeah, she was a writer. I'm just looking at her games. Ratchet and Clank, Cards Against Humanity, Mass Effect. Let's go. That'd be fun.
But yeah, so I'm not quite as low as you on it. I'm trying to see what I gave to Brotherhood and Shadow of the Sith.
I think I gave those a C.
We both gave those Bs actually, and I feel like this feels like a similar book, but I do think it's done worse than those. So like a lot of the things that I liked about those were here, but not executed quite as well. And there are some things that I think those books explored better, like the villains. As longer books, it's a bit easier, but that I don't think there was any like hard limit on what the pages had to be. And then there's just stuff thrown in, like the Circlet of Suresh, which are kind of barely mentioned, much like we're barely mentioning it in the podcast now. That could have been fleshed out a bit more with even just a little more time, possibly taken away from the scenes that felt a little bit extraneous. So I'm going one below what I gave those and giving it a C.
Okay. I will say, like, someone wrote, "Is this the horniest Star Wars book ever?" And it's like, maybe, like, it's got to be up there, but it's sad because, like, if you compare it to what's it called, Lost Stars, which is also very horny, maybe like less. Actually, I'd say it's pretty similar, but like that book is like you understand why the characters love each other and why they're like horny for each other. So that will be a good comparison, I think, when we finally get around to doing that.
Yeah. All right.
Did we have any emails?
We do have. We had 2 emails when I last checked. Looks like there are still 2 emails. First, we got from Joel, who says, "Do you think one of the reasons a lot of new canon books and comics feel different is that overall they're trying to appeal to a different audience compared to the Legends audience? The new audience being a lot with different tastes in storytelling and tropes, and probably more online with social media. Curious to hear your thoughts on different generational tastes and how it affects Star Wars storytelling."
I don't know if I think the audience is maybe a little broader, so maybe.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't put it beyond that.
Yeah, like I do think in certain periods of the Bantam and Del Rey publishing, there was one specific idea of like this is what a Star Wars book is, and you got like some variants on that. Whereas now there's a lot more playing with different genres in a way that was a lot more rare back then.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a bigger idea that like you can do different stuff and that can still be Star Wars. You can have different genres you're playing with. You can appeal to different audiences because it's not just the 90s idea of like this is what a nerd is. So I think there's definitely something to that.
Yep.
We actually just got another email. So I'll read that one. And then we had one more after that. So this is a deeper question. We are on a bit of a time limit for this episode. So this is a bit longer of an email and a bit deeper of a question. So we might have to come back to this one next time. Sorry, Theo. But the final email is from Gustav, who asks, when are we going to go back to NJO? And that will probably be April or May.
Yeah. Yeah, probably around then.
Because you're gone next week, so no Tapcaf next week.
Yeah, and then I've got another trip later, so
yeah,
it'll be a bit, and it'll be probably after Mando ends.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we've got next week we won't be here. Week after that, we'll
desperately need to do a Mando.
Yeah, we'll need to talk about Mando and Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Week after that, we won't be around. And then so like April 6th will probably be another Mando episode. So maybe on the 13th, if we're both around, we'll be able to do Dark Journey. It's a pretty short book, so it shouldn't be too bad. So tentatively, maybe at that point, but
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. There's a lot of time between now and April, so
yeah. So we need to make sure that we get over to our.
I do have a couple reviews that I want to read.
Yep.
Including one 1-star review that somebody left, and it's a nonsense review, so I'm not even going to read it. I'll just say
nonsense as in it's a joke, or nonsense as in it's a joke.
It's like it's trying to be funny, but like we don't have that many podcast reviews, so a 1-star review really fucking puts us down. So you can eat my entire asshole for that. I don't appreciate that for real. I don't like look at that and get a chuckle. I don't like say that person's a real funny cat. I just get disappointed. We had a review from Master Chief. I may have read this one. Justin and Corey are great. Their hatred of Republic Commando notwithstanding. Yes, Justin, you hate it. No need to say otherwise. They show me new Star Wars content I can enjoy and I've never heard of and has really gotten me to buying the new Jedi Order books. There we go. They're both devoted content creators that continually bring new things to the Star Wars fandom, whether Justin's Battle of the Dreadnoughts or Corey's 3D breakdown of Thrawn's fleet in the Thrawn trilogy. Great job. Keep it up. 10 out of 10. Thank you. Then Add-On says, this is the best Star Wars podcast by virtue of being the only podcast I know I have checked. The discussion is thought-provoking and entertaining. I don't know what else you could ask for. So, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Look, if you want to give us actual 1-star reviews because that's what you think, do what you got to do. But
if you actually think our podcast is only worth 1 star, then fine, leave a 1-star review. But we don't sling boner pills to you guys.
Yes.
We don't yet. I would. We don't sling fucking. I'm trying to think of whatever Alex Jones slings. We don't do it. It's free. But yeah, that's all I got.
Download Male Vitality.
Download Male Vitality. You'll get big and red like I am.
All right. Well, we're gonna go and do some Fortnite action over on Twitch. Or actually, I might do it on my YouTube channel, so not there. But
okay.
x2.com/x2, YouTube, not whatever. The others, I give out the links before. If you're gonna watch, you already know where the hell it is.